What is an idea you've seen in another game that you didn't work on that you wished you'd had?
You should have sent this to me ahead of time, then I could have thought about it.
Scott, you told me in the chat I don't need to see any questions in advance. What are you talking about?
Don't excite me.
Specifically said that to me.
Here's the thing: is that I know this has happened a million times. Where I'm like, "Oh, that's a damn cool idea. I wish I would have thought of that, or wish we would have done that in our game." Well, I mean, okay, well, probably the biggest one that haunts us is Prey with not having a portal gun in the game, because a year after we released Prey in 2006, which had all this really cool portal technology, the game Portal comes out and has a portal gun. But the sad thing is, we actually, in our very first around 97, 98 versions of Prey that we were doing internally, we had a portal gun. And for some reason, we just forgot about it when we revived Prey with Human Head around 2002 or 2003, and they took over the project and did it in the Doom 3 engine. We just kind of forgot that, geez, we had this portal gun and it was a great idea, when we had the idea like 4 or 5 years ago, and it just didn't end up, we didn't put it in the game. And then, Portal comes out and it's like, oh, it was such a head slapper because we should have done that first. We had the idea in the late 90s. We had the perfect game for it. Why didn't we do it? So seeing Portals done in the game Portal was such a like, damn it. They sort of, I mean, they beat us to the punch. They deserve the prize.
Yeah, it's fair. Yeah, I mean, I've always felt that Portal kind of overshadowed that element of Prey in a lot of ways. Less people, I guess, know about, I don't know, Prey these days at least, and more so Portal for having portals. And I always go out of my way to be like, hold on, Prey had it first. But yeah,
we had portals first, but they had the
not
portal
the gun.
gun.
Yeah,
that's such a big thing that we left out.
All right, so from Mothership Loudspeakers via Discord, what criteria did you follow throughout the years to archive all the bits from your past works? I assume this is for Scott.
Yes, Scott, you like posting, even on LinkedIn. Like, I've commented to some of your LinkedIn stuff as well. There's a lot of historical stuff there from your titles in the past. How on earth do you still have that stuff? You must have an archival system where you have them on hand.
I was just good at keeping files back in the day, and I was a collector of everything we did, so I stored it away. I think the key is, I've thought to myself, why aren't other companies doing what I'm doing, which is really digging back into the 90s and so on, and just posting all this cool stuff that we were involved with back then. And the problem is that, like, why isn't id doing this? Well, the fact is, id's founders aren't with it anymore. And that's true of a lot of companies that, were around in the 90s, but are not around now. I mean, or they are around now maybe, but their founders aren't around. So I was, what companies could do this? I guess Blizzard could do it. Tim Sweeney with Epic could definitely do it.
For sure.
But he's off battling Apple and Google.
And ignoring Unreal.
There's just not that many companies that are in a position where their founders are still around and they can do what I'm doing. Is the thing. John Romero does this on his own to a small extent. I've seen him do it.
Yep. That's what I was thinking of the whole time.
Yeah.
But, basically, the thing is, though, is with John Romero, he's got a lot of stuff that he kept, but when the company was sold to Activision and he wasn't around for that, or maybe he was, I forget what the timeline was, but, the company was engulfed by, were they bought by, it was bought by Bethesda.
Or
ZeniMax.
ZeniMax.
Anyway.
ZeniMax owns Bethesda, So.
Right. When that happens, a lot of the company's history is in those file cabinets that get moved on to the corporate mothership.
Yeah.
And so John Romero and John Carmack and the original founders, they kind of lose touch, and they no longer have access to that anymore. But since, I was around from the beginning with Apogee, 1990, I've still got all that stuff.
Yeah, I think John Romero's one of the few that do it. Tim Kaine is pretty big on that kind of stuff as well. He's one of the others, who has a whole channel devoted to showing off all his old stuff, which is cool. I think that's awesome. I think that's a cool thing that when No Clip digs into studios, in documentaries and stuff, you get to see all this, cool stuff that, used to nobody really talked about or showed off, and now we're at a point where a lot of people can, or some people can do that, and it's really cool to see it when you can.
Also, not only do I wish more people were doing it, but the crazy thing is back when in the 90s were happening, when we're a height of all this stuff that, when you're in the middle of it, you don't ever think that this stuff's going to be cool one day, or something like Twitter's going to come along one day that you can now start hosting it. You don't think about that at all. You're living in the moment and just trying to get the next game out the door. And so it's kind of a miracle that I was such a pack rat when it comes to just storing everything. Like every single magazine that came out, I would cut out anything to do with our games. Just everything. I just, for some reason, just save things, not really knowing that one day it would be cool to kind of look through and it become almost museum worthy. No one is thinking that way back in the day, and even studios now should be storing stuff, because in 20 or 30 years, they'll be in the same boat where, now it's become like this nostalgic item. It's cool. It's historic. And, so everyone should be saving their stuff is what it comes down to.
Yeah. And,
I would cycle, isn't it?
Yeah. And you mentioned Blizzard. I'd love to see what Blizzard has just hiding in the corner. You know what I mean? Like they just got a shelf somewhere with a bunch of just super cool stuff on it that nobody's ever going to see.
Right. Or Nintendo, for instance. I don't know why they don't have a dedicated Twitter, or at least on their Twitter, once a day. It's easy. Just post something from their past. That way you're kind of reminding people about your legacy while also you're talking about what you're currently doing.
Okay, we got one from Mugu, who's working on the game Fault, if you've heard of that. And this one's for Scott. He's asking, which of the new indie shooters do you wish you would have published?
Besides Ultra Kill?
Right. Kind of hard to top that one, isn't it?
Well, it's the big money maker. How could you not?
Gosh, I mean, what Dave Oshry is doing is just incredible. He's got the Midas touch with every project he's involved with. It seems like, I remember seeing Dusk at QuakeCon, which is here in Dallas, before it came out. He had a little booth there. He was showing off this game, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, wow, this looks like it's from the 90s. This ain't gonna sell. But he clearly knew what he was doing, because obviously the game did extremely well. And I've played it, I've finished it, and the thing about Dusk is it's just a great game with whatever style of graphics you want to paint it in. It's just a great game. And the fact that it's retro doesn't take anything away from what it is. It probably even adds to it, because it gives it that different vibe. But everything about that game is just so well designed. I'm constantly referring to that game to our designers, about, like one of the things I love about Dusk is its audio design. You hear this creature before you even see it, and it just...
I was going to say that, yes.
It gives you a sense of dread, and I'm like, why don't more games do stuff like that? Because it really adds to the experience. There's a lot to learn from Dusk. So it's just such a well-designed game, and then, Dave Oshry is just got it going. So impressed by what he does.